Yes, so I thought this was a very nice topic. And in a way, when you think about speed in terms of spiritual effort, it sounds a bit funny or strange, like something you can accelerate. But like when you are going from A to B, there are various ways you can shorten your journey. Yes, you can step on the accelerator, whatever that means in a spiritual context. But certainly there are other ways to shorten your journey by the choice of transportation, and not the least by the way you travel. Are you traveling the shortest route, or are you taking a lot of long-winded routes, maybe losing your way and moving in circles? So I think in terms of, or in the context of our spiritual journey, it's maybe more pertinent to talk about the method of our journey. And I thought it would be worthwhile to look at different aspects tonight of our Brahmin life. What can shorten our journey towards perfection, towards our aim? So Baba does talk about this in various murlis, the fast effort making. He even talks about transformation in a second. And I think first and foremost, fast in the context of spiritual effort making has to be understood as efficient and consistent. So it means that our journey is, we are learning from our experiences, and we are constantly improving and making progress. We all know that the journey is not just a steady climb. It goes up and down. For most Brahmins have that experience, that it's sometimes we have setbacks and we fall. Maybe we have to pick ourselves up, and so all of this obviously makes our journey longer than it had to be. So I think what is really important for us is that we learn from our experiences, and we do not keep on making the same mistakes again and again. And we make sure that our journey is consistent. So we have to make consistent effort. Baba sometimes calls it constant or uninterrupted effort. A lot of the Avyakt Murlis, at least the recent Avyakt Murlis, have been dealing with this constancy and consistency. And I feel that one of the most important things we can do for ourselves in this regard is to establish very good routines as early as possible in our Brahmin life. Whatever we establish early will become natural, and we will then also be able to sustain them over a long period of time. The effort making, I feel, should really be like a machinery, like a train that just runs. We don't have to question it, and we don't have to make any sort of deviations. We should be absolutely consistent as a train, because we have already made a decision, all of us, for our lives, and we have already committed ourselves. We have already decided this is the life we want. We all know what we are aiming for. So we should make sure that we make it easy for ourselves, and all the basic requirements for success in Brahmin life, the basic maryadas that we have been given, Amrit Vela, morning class, evening meditation, all these are very, very easy and beneficial to sustain us in our Brahmin life. And we should definitely we should make sure that we have a very high level of discipline here. Spiritual effort making without discipline is not possible. I mean, if we want success, we have to be very disciplined. And we usually are like that. When we come to Baba, we are certainly not, most of us, but then we adopt, Brahmin disciplines. And then after some years, maybe we start becoming more lenient and we become more slack. And then there is the risk there that Maya gets hold of us. And we should at least avoid that pitfall and make sure that the premises, the foundation is in a good shape, because there are plenty of other things that we have to address. Then there is the whole question of what I like to call the power of transformation. You all know about the 8 powers, but obviously there are many more than those. And one of them, which I think is really, really essential in Brahmin life, is the power of transformation, the ability to transform myself, even the most stubborn sanskaras in nature. How good am I in transforming myself? Or am I repeating old patterns again and again? This is something that is determined by certain other factors, which we will come back to. But for sure, some souls have a very strong power, transformation power, in the sense they can make very fast and very sudden changes in their lives. Even, I'm not just talking about routines and lifestyle, but even in terms of responses, thought patterns, interaction with others, behavior, all of this. And for others, it's a struggle. It can go on for years and years, and they struggle with the same issues of nature and sanskaras, old nature and sanskaras. So ultimately, the power of transformation is really about the ability to completely change my life and circumstances. And of course, a lot of it happens when we come to Baba and change our life and circumstances and lifestyle. But also the more subtle things, our behavioral patterns, habits and deep-rooted sanskaras, those can actually be changed quite fast if there is sufficient determination, I think. And I think that is what Baba is so often trying to tell us, especially in the Avyak Mulis. In many different ways, you will find that he is addressing this, the fact that we are spending a lot of time trying to change things that could really be done in a second. That's coming back to the transformation of the Jivan Mukti stage in a second, liberation in life in a second. And I think it's a very, very important point to stress that we have here an option for shortening our journey by making sudden changes with a very strong commitment and determination. And I mean, our whole war or battle is, of course, with sanskaras and nature. Sanskaras and nature, Tamo and Rajo, nature, is really what constitutes all the problems for us. That's what we are trying to overcome. So certain things take time, like it takes time to accumulate yoga power. It takes time to become purified. It takes time to settle your karmas. So there are certain things we cannot accelerate, however much we like. But then there is a room for very rapid changes that we can make, and which is entirely up to us. And we can waste our time. We can it can take years for us to change certain patterns. It can also be done very quickly, and it is more than anything a question of our determination and our commitment, values and principles. So we all have individual aims, maybe certain things we would like to get rid of or develop. We have different parts and different paths, but we also have one common aim, all of us, and that is the stage of Jivan Mukti, liberation in life. And I think it's important to understand that Jivan Mukti is different from the eventual Karmatit stage. Jivan Mukti is a stage, a kind of milestone that we can reach long before we reach our destination, and it should be reached long before the destination. Destination means Karmatit. We have settled all our karmas. We are not performing anymore, bad karma. We are not entangling ourselves, and we are completely settled. And then we cannot stay in this body and in this world. So it's a very ultimate stage. It's a karmic stage, in the sense that it has to do with the karmic situation. But Jivan Mukti has more to do with our mind and our spiritual maturity, that we are able to, in the face of our karmic accounts and obstacles, whatnot, we are able to maintain a sense of liberation and freedom, happiness, lightness. And that entails, of course, freedom from our old nature and sanskaras, freedom from influence from others, freedom from the vices, everything that burdens us and pulls us down. And at that point, when we reach that milestone, we are actually in a very good stage, and we can start accumulating. Before we reach Jivan Mukti, we cannot really accumulate because we are still fluctuating. So there is no stability, because we are still under the influence of internal and external factors. So obviously, as long as we are fluctuating, we cannot make consistent, we cannot consistently charge the soul. We cannot really become powerful. So there are, I feel, very clear, there are very clear milestones on this path, and one of the biggest ones is that Jivan Mukti stage, which, as Baba so often says, it has to be experienced over a long period of time, because that is the quality we will go to Sat Yuga with. That is the quality that will sustain us for 21 births, hopefully beyond that as well. Unless we are able to consolidate that stage over a long period of time, we will not be able to establish deep sanskaras of Jivan Mukti. The more consolidated Jivan Mukti becomes in us, the earlier we can come down, because the more we are able to sustain ourselves over a longer period of time in the cycle. So it's very important that this is achieved early, and as early as possible. It cannot maybe be achieved from day one, but it can be achieved much before we reach our destination. And that's really our main effort. And I think it's really what most of the Sakamurli is teaching us. If we look apart from all the you can say the history and geography part of the Murli, all the dharanas, the advice that Baba is giving us for improving our lives, how we should behave, all of that is we can find that in the Sakamurli. So Jivan Mukti is it's a spiritual stage, and it's a stage of maturity. I have become a master of my own life. I'm not a slave anymore. I've become a king. Again, this is the main topic of the Sakamurli, becoming a self-sovereign, becoming a king. And that also means that we become what is known in both in Gyan and also in general in India as a punyatma. So we become righteous, we become virtuous. Sometimes it's translated as charitable in the Murli, but it's really more than that. It is righteous and virtuous, and because of that, fortunate. So we accumulate fortune and we feel fortunate because we feel light and happy and liberated. Basically what all our efforts is about. And that also means that we have to reach the stage where we feel liberated from tamo and rajo sanskars and nature. So the vices, we should have no inkling or any interest or any pull or attachment to any vices. And I think more than this being something that just comes naturally, it probably does over time, but we can accelerate that process by taking charge of our life. And it's all about awareness. And you will find also so many places, especially in the Avyakt Murli, where Baba is trying to raise our awareness. He's stressing the importance of awareness. We become forgetful again and again. We slip back into old nature and sanskaras because we cannot sustain sufficient awareness. It's like we slip into a kind of sleepwalking. And the key to that raised awareness is to, rather than being a law abider, we are following Srimad, we are abiding to the laws given by Baba, we should make a shift to being a lawmaker. So if you are a law abider, you can also be a lawbreaker, right? But if you are a lawmaker, then you are in charge. You have made the law yourself. Of course, you will follow it. You will defend it. And of course, the laws have been lined out by Baba, but I think there is a question of ownership here, that we should take ownership of the laws and the values, principles in our life. We should understand why we follow them, and even if there are no sanctions, no one is looking at us, no one is checking or controlling, we should still follow them, because we have that sense of ownership. It's my religion, basically. The laws of our life are our religion. It's our religion. Of course, we cannot we cannot leave our religion, or we cannot be. We have to be faithful to our religion. So that is it's something that comes from our intellect. It's certainly not something that we can expect from our sanskaras. Sanskaras have no values. Sanskaras have instincts and habits and inclinations and likes and dislikes, all of which are the root of fluctuation, basically. The only thing that can create stability in our mind and in our, create consistency in our effort is the intellect, in which we find our values and our principles. That is, I think, also a very, very decisive milestone in our life, when we are able to sustain that stage of Jivan Mukti based on our values and principles. Our actions, thoughts, words, and actions have to be determined and driven by our values and principles, not by any whims or likes or dislikes. And so often, when Baba talks about that we slip back into old patterns, and that we become forgetful, and then we wake up and realize, and then we say, I'm sorry, I didn't want to, but then I don't know what happened. It's again because of this lack of control. What happens gradually, and that's not something I think we can really accelerate that much. It's a result of accumulating yoga power. It's something that takes time. But what happens is that we gradually shift from external to internal fulfillment. So, and it's not just, fulfillment through the senses, but it's also any type of pleasure we take from, our achievements, praise, roles, anything that feeds our ego. All of that is basically external, extrinsic. We are extrinsically motivated. But over time, what happens is, as we accumulate yoga power, we start to experience more an internal fulfillment, and the external fulfillment becomes less important. We experience a constant state of pleasure. We cannot have any constancy if we rely on external fulfillment, because we know any external factors are due to change over time. And sometimes we have praise, sometimes defamation, and all those factors are changing and fluctuating. So our fulfillment has to be based on our internal qualities, yoga power. The sense of contentment that Baba is also so often stressing. We have to be content. Contentment is maybe the essence of the Jivan Mukti stage. I feel content. And again, it doesn't mean that I have settled all my karma yet. I can still have a lot of karmic debts pending, but I can at the same time experience some sort of detachment and contentment. And then we have to be very aware of the small vices the extra ones, laziness and carelessness, I mean, or complacency, they easily creep in, and they are quite detrimental. And they are also a sign that I am not really following principles and values. I am following maybe some sanskaras of lethargy or laziness. I don't do what I ought to do. I find excuses, when there's laziness and carelessness, then excuses follow in their wake. So that I have to be also very aware of, that I am not under the influence of these. So we all get an early taste of Jivan Mukti, and that is, of course, the what incentivizes us. We get the taste for more of it, and our whole quest from that point on is to acquire it completely, not just as a temporary taste, but we want the whole fruit in our hand. So I think there is a kind of code that we have to crack. We have to find out how can we cut off a lot of the time we spend in changing and transforming ourselves. And in a way, when we look at Brahma, Baba, and Mama especially, maybe also some of the others, but those two, I think, have been outstanding examples. It seems like they were almost at the Jivan Mukti stage from the beginning. I don't think anyone experienced any fluctuation or instability or battling with those two souls. Of course, again, they were not karmatit. It took the years it took for them to reach the karmatit stage, but the Jivan Mukti stage was probably reached quite early. And in that sense, they were very, very fast and efficient and ahead of everyone else. And based on that, they could, of course, advise the rest of us. But why was that the case? Well, again, I think if one or two can do it, everyone can in principle do it. As I mentioned before, there are certain things that we cannot accelerate. We cannot speed up those processes. But this stage of Jivan Mukti is actually something that can be achieved quite soon. And no doubt that in their case, it has been based on a very, very heightened awareness and commitment to the cause. They knew who they were, whom they were becoming. And I mean, there's a reason why they become the empress and emperor. They are the lawmakers par excellence for all of us. But I think, any example they said we can copy, and that's also what we are asked to do. So for me, it's really a question of pride and self-respect. Self-respect is a very powerful driver here. We all want self-respect. In fact, it's one of the innate qualities of the soul, like purity and happiness and bliss, etc. So self-respect is part of our nature, and it has been severely damaged throughout the last 63 births. But we have to sort of raise that again, and that self-respect is really what sustains our principles. Everything is weighed against, measured against, benchmarked against our self-respect. we cannot do anything that compromises or hurts our self-respect. So I can see that a lot of us, a lot of Brahmins are especially battling with karmic accounts and conflicts with others, or some sort of struggle with relationships, especially in the BK world, maybe more with BKs than with anyone else. And that is, I feel, really an area where we can transform, we can change very quickly. We don't have to go into these battles and these conflicts. Yes, we may notice that there is a karmic account. We instinctively notice if that is the case, but we don't have to let ourselves get pulled into conflicts and battles and struggles and competition and arguments and all that sort, which drains us, wastes our time. We should really learn the art of staying beyond that entanglement, because that is probably where we are wasting most of our time, and we are being held into a confinement. It's like you are on this journey. Metaphorically, you're on the road, and then your car breaks down, and you're not even progressing anymore. You're just standing still, or of course it will delay your journey. So we have to make sure that we are free of these kind of self-inflicted wounds and accidents. And that's of course something that has to do with that stability and consistency. If we still keep making these errors in our relationships, in our dharana, we are not able to accelerate our journey. And here, this is probably one of the areas where I think we can speed up the process more than anything else, just by making sure, again, with that self-respect in mind, with that self-sovereignty, we make sure that we don't compromise our values, our righteousness. We don't go into battles and conflicts. We have to detach. We have to guard our self-respect here. Every time we get pulled into these silly games, we are compromising our self-respect. So we have to create a very strong mold or very strong template for ourselves. This is how I want to be, and I'm not going to deviate from this, come what may. And then the question is whether we are able to sustain that self-control, or we get deceived again and again and are pulled back by our old sanskars and nature. That is where the battle takes place. And I think it's a battle we can win quite easily and quite fast. But it requires maturity, and I think that is the maturity that Mama and Baba seemed to display from the very beginning. So we come to Baba and we have low self-respect. We have a weak self-discipline. We have very little self-determination because we are not really in control. We are under the influence of old sanskars and nature, and that means that we are not sovereigns anymore. We also have a very poor self-realization because we have no gyan, so we are completely lost in that maze. And then we have a very low resistance to Maya. All these factors are there in most Brahmins when they come. That's just what you would expect after, 84 births. But then when we eventually leave with Baba, we will have very high self-respect and a very strong self-discipline, very strong self-determination. We will be, there will be complete alignment between our dharana and our principles and values. No inner conflicts, no gaps to bridge. And full self-realization. There will be no more dark spots, because as long as there are aspects in our sanskaras, nature and sanskaras, that we haven't fully shed light on, we haven't fully understood, we will be subject to deception. I mean, these are areas where we can be deceived, we can be pulled back. So to conclude, I think the journey to Jivan Mukti has to be guided by conscious decisions and principles, and being faithful to those. We are not going to achieve Jivan Mukti just by itself. Just like I will not reach my destination if I just set out. I don't know where it is. I don't know where I am. I have no map. I have no understanding. Of course, it would be sheer luck if I reached the destination, and it would probably take a long time if I had to try out all possible routes. So Jivan Mukti is something that we have to steer towards, guided by our decisions and principles. That's the power of transformation I mentioned in the beginning, that has to overrule our sanskaras. And self-respect is the driver here. Self-respect. So I think I would maybe stop here and open up for some questions if you have.
Yes, thank you so much for your sharings. They're very powerful. And of course, Jivan Mukti is something that is very important in this life. I like what you said about the accumulating yoga power. It's very important, and I think now, all of us are trying to have yoga bhattis and everything, but sometimes there is not so much power while we are in yoga. We get into the room or wherever we choose to be, and then after a while, our mind flies here and there. There is no discipline. There is no determination. All the bad relationships come into our minds, and other people, other souls, and we lose control. And then there's no yoga power then, and there's no result. So sometimes we feel frustrated when we are in yoga, and we have many things to put aside from our daily life, but they come into our mind in yoga. How can we control the mind?
Yeah, that is, of course, the most subtle effort of all, and that is that's in particular the challenge for a yogi. I mean, it's no doubt the most difficult thing to completely stabilize the mind when we sit in yoga. Even after many years, we still have to have a lot of focus on that right until the end. But I think we should at least make the foundation easy for us, in the sense that, you know, if, as you mentioned, if you have outstanding conflicts or any relationships that are pulling you, then there's a reason for that. That has to be found in your past interactions with them. You have created some entanglement, or you have maybe had some either negative thoughts or negative interaction with them, which keep disturbing you when you sit in yoga. And even if there is not that, but just some sort of just some discomfort, with other people, and that's all coming from karmic accounts of the past. So it's maybe past lives, not even this life. Then we have to make sure that it doesn't, color our mind. It doesn't affect our mind. We shouldn't feel bad about them or have bad feelings for them. That is all to do with our dharana, whether it's in mind, in speech, or in action. And that is something we need to have constant awareness and focus on in our daily life when we are not sitting in yoga, so outside yoga hours. Because whatever we do and think and say during the day, that is going to come back to us when we sit in yoga. That's why I think at least what we can do is try to control our behavior, our actions, thoughts, and words, and in this way we can give ourselves the best conditions when we sit in yoga. Even having said that, I fully agree. There are lots of distractions possible when we sit, and I think we just need to go back to the first lesson. I mean, it's basically the same effort that we are trying to improve our controlling power, being able to stop thoughts. Something Baba often talks about. You can create the thoughts, so why can't you not stop them? That ability to stop a thought is also part of that transformation power I talked about. That you have the ability, that control, that level of control over your mind, that you can actually stop a thought. The problem is that we often, when we slip into this forgetfulness, we don't really realize that we are going off track, and we may sit for minutes, maybe half of the meditation before we realize that we are not having yoga. We are basically just drifting off. And I don't know, I can't give you any, miracle remedy here. This is, it is a true, genuine effort that we all have to make. And that's why I think we should at least try to eliminate all the superfluous, the unnecessary struggles that we have in Brahmin life, having to do with our relationships, and other areas where we can actually control. This is under our control. And then just be left with, what is actually quite demanding and what requires a higher level of awareness.
Thank you. There is a question. Can you share some sign of accumulating yoga power?
Yes, one sign, it was the one I mentioned before. We can feel that we are being more naturally introverted, in the sense that we are moving from external fulfillment, from fulfillment through the senses, or fulfillment through relationships, or through any sort of ego stimulation, to a fulfillment from our internal and eternal qualities: peace and bliss, contentment, love, lightness, freedom. These are all aspects of the soul, and the transformation from, you can say, human to deity is pretty much about moving from mental, emotional, or sensual fulfillment into a fulfillment from the qualities of the soul. Peace and love and bliss are not emotions, they're not feelings, they are soul qualities. So that accumulation of yoga is making us soul conscious, gradually, drop by drop. And that soul consciousness means that we are starting to enjoy our own being from within. And the more we get the taste for that, the more it pulls us. So it really becomes a pull factor. We enjoy being in silence. We enjoy being introverted. We enjoy being detached. For many Brahmins, this is not the case. And that's because we have had so many births of extrovertness, and we have been relying on external fulfillment, and that has become a very, very deep habit. This can only be changed once we get the taste for soul consciousness, purity. You can equate it with purity. It's basically the same. So we all get that taste initially. The question is only, do we forget it? Do we forget our childhood, or do we keep it in front of us as an aspiration, something we pursue until we have fully accommodated or accumulated, accomplished?
Thank you. There is it says Jivan Mukti helps to reach the Karmatit stage, right?
Yes, it's a prerequisite. It's the via point that we all have to pass through to become Karmatit. There is no way to Karmatit without becoming Jivan Mukt. Because if I'm not Jivan Mukt, I'm basically still creating karmic accounts. That's the fact. I'm fluctuating. I am not in control. So it means I am being under the sway of my old sanskars and nature, which is definitely deceiving me. So I can never reach the point where I, let alone settling my karmic debt of the past, I cannot even reach the stage where I stop creating new karmic accounts. So Jivan Mukti is absolutely essential. It's not something I can bypass in any way.
Thank you. And there is another question. Can you give us some tips how to become detached observers?
Yeah, to some extent, it's a stage that, referring to the previous question, it's a stage that comes as a natural consequence of accumulating yoga power. We become more and more detached. Detachment is pretty much the essence of being soul conscious. We become detached from our senses, and we equally become detached from our sanskaras. Just think of what happens when you sit in meditation. You are experiencing a detachment from your sense organs. Even though we sit with eyes open, we are detached. And we are also experiencing a detachment from our sanskaras. We are not under the influence of our sanskaras. Once we are in yoga, until we reach that, we may be battling, like you mentioned before, waste thoughts. But as soon as we transcend, as soon as we go into that state of soul consciousness, it's like the sanskaras are gone. That's the magic. And that is a state of liberation in life. And that is somehow a a stage that we have to expand so that it is experienced also when we are not in yoga, not as intensively, of course, but still a sense of pleasure, of comfort, of contentment. I forgot.
Thank you.
Can you just
Yes,
question?
yes, yes. It was a nice answer. Yeah, all of us have to think over whatever you said because I don't know. I'm talking about myself. About Jivan Mukti, yeah, of course, I would like to reach that stage, and whatever you share were very powerful. But sometimes in our connections, um, perhaps we think we don't have an ego, but then there are people that come close to you with their own ego. So there is some kind of, bad feelings created there. So we need to, whatever you said, yes, we have to follow that and never lose our self-respect. Because sometimes, I'm not talking about myself about that, but you can see souls who struggle so much and you cannot help them with their sanskars. You cannot help them. You cannot tell them what to do. We're not, those people who will tell them whatever they should do is not correct. So when there is some kind of conflict, ego conflict, what can we do to pass through that without being affected? Of course, Baba is with us, but when there is something that makes our power going down, and then we have to struggle to get power from Baba in some circumstances. So how can we be, in a second, transform whatever is not, healthy for the soul? How can we transform it in a second?
I
Of
mean,
course, whatever you said, it was the way to do that. But when we forget and we cannot do it,
if you are being pulled down by others, it's because your own ego is engaged, right? So we have to make sure that we are under, we are not, we are outside the reach of others. Outside. That's why we need this natural buffer and distance, healthy distance to other people, a certain level of detachment. The whole ego issue is also, of course, very, very relevant here, and it's a tricky thing because Baba calls it body consciousness, but it's basically the ego, and I think. To me, I can speak from my own experience. I think that the only way we can really die from our ego is if we have a very highly developed self-respect. So we are not seeking any external validation of any kind. We don't care about it. We know our worth. People can say what they want. We can maybe learn from it. We can sometimes, it's useful information we can use for our progress, but we don't allow it to pull us down in any way. So that self-respect has to be completely firmly established. And together with that self-respect, there also has to be love for oneself. So love for the self and self-respect are deeply connected. And often people who lack that self-respect also lack the love for themselves. We just had a retreat a few weeks ago in Scandinavia, and I brought up this question. I don't know if it's a question you have ever asked yourself, but I think it's a question everyone should ask themselves. What do I really love about myself? I mean, this is very, very important. What do I really love about myself? There must be something about my nature, we have to sort of step back and look at ourselves like Baba looks at us, as a detached observer. So from outside the drama, and just observe ourselves as a participant in this drama. What do I love about myself? Can I see the qualities in myself that Baba has seen in me? That is something that will enhance our sense of self-respect. And yeah, I agree that it's something that it can be difficult to sort of emerge if it's not there, but it's definitely the key to success in this matter. It is really to be able to emerge that. And I think the whole Murli, whether it's the Saka or the Avyak Murli, both of them are trying to constantly awaken this memory and bringing up and emerging that sense of pride and self-respect and mastery, and it's all about that. And for some it's easy to make real, and for others it seems very distant and very sort of I don't know, irrelevant. But it's Baba is giving us that method, and it's all about raising our awareness, raising our consciousness to the extent that it can override, it can overrule the old nature and sanskaras. And then it means that we are making a shift from being old to being new. That's the feeling of Jivan Mukti, that I am not an old soul anymore. I don't have the burden anymore of being an old soul. I have the lightness of being a new soul. So that's why it's a very decisive shift in our life.